interesting one.
Yes, sir, definitely.
I will go slowly. So again, it will not be a kind of a boring session later on. So let me share this slide. Hope it is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
So now in this session, today I'm going to discuss about data nuances. Nuances is all about like knowing the data. Usually in most of the machine learning applications, people do not focus on data, the types, the features, what are the different types of nuances into them. So these are some of the things which I'm going to discuss today, and it is going to be a very interesting and eye-opening kind of a session that we should definitely focus on data nuances. So what I have outlined for this particular session is that we need to apply ethical practices in everyday business activities in terms of when data, make well-reasoned ethical business and data management decisions, demonstrate knowledge of statistical analysis technique utilized in business decision making, apply principles of ethics to the analysis of business problems, and goals for building ML solution. So there is a very good course I suggest all of you to do that if possible. Ethics in Data Science is one of the course available on course. A very interesting one, and it shows that like if there is some sort of unethical practice applied into machine learning or data science or data analytics, it can completely change the result. And definitely not in terms of talking about the biases. Biases can be ethical also, that is not a problem. But the thing is, when we are talking about, say for example, today measuring the blood sugar level, those who are having diabetic problem, they measure the blood sugar level. We completely rely on that device. But if the medical standard says that like 140 is normal blood sugar level, then definitely we are actually wasting time and energy, and we are consuming unnecessary tablets for having a diabetic condition. So this is all about kind of an ethical business activity when we are talking about data. This data actually creates the trust on the application. So as a data engineer or as a data scientist or as a professor to guide the project to the students, we need to see that there is an ethics in the data. There is always a useful data, truthful data. Important thing about the data nuances. We need to see that first. So machine learning is all about driving better decision. Normally in any of the problem you see like from a perspective of a developer, perspective of a researcher, or maybe perspective as a business problem. It is all about we want to take better decision, and that is what the whole concept of AI is all about, that we want to drive better decision. AI is able to do lots of things altogether perfectly like human. So we want to see that it acts like us, and basically it takes the decision like us. So even as a human also, we take sometimes wrong decision based on our understanding. So sometimes as a human also we may go fail. So similarly the AI system can also sometimes go fail, but normally that doesn't happen because it is developed in a very strict environment in terms of number of data and variety of data. Learning is about like driving better decisions. Now look at this very interesting image. I like to share with most of the presentation I do, that in the center part of the image there is an object which is cut in a different shape. Basically it looks like a cone, but that has cut from one end. There is a circular surface on the another side, and from another side it looks like a square. So when we project or throw some light and get the projection on the wall of that particular object, so I have written this is truth. Truth means the object itself. So that is the truth. But when you are sending a light from the right side on the wall, it is basically creating an image of a square. From that this side it creates a circle, and from top side it creates a projection on the bottom of a triangle. So true, there is nothing wrong in that. So very important thing we need to understand from this image, to get inspiration from this image, is all about like whatever data you have, how you look at the data brings the decision out of that. And it is very important as a researcher, developer of a system, that we need to see that how we are get the data, what is the perspective of data, and what sort of result we want to bring. If someone wants to bring the result out of this data, he will say no, this is a kind of a triangular shape because I'm getting the uh, shadow of a triangle on my on the bottom surface. So that is also true. But someone says no, it is a rectangle, that is also true. and a circle is also true, but the truth is totally different than the true shape of the images on which is being projected on the screen. So whenever we are applying some knowledge, whenever we are applying some algorithm, we need to see that what sort of problems we are targeting, what sort of problem we want to solve. Similarly, take three stumps of a cricket match. If you project the light, throw a light from one end of the three stumps in front of these three stumps, you will be able to see a picture of three stumps. As you change the angle of the battery or the light source, again the size of the will also change. So maybe even changing the projection or the angle of the light which is being thrown, your output changes, or maybe the shadow changes in terms of size of the stump. If you throw the light from the left side of the stump, it means that it will show you only a single shadow of a single stump. So that is also true. So the thing is, data may be anything, but it is your perception, it is your understanding, it is your knowledge, it is your technology which technology is not supporting some sort of things, you will never be able to come to a decision which you are interested. So you need to see that how it works, and this is very important and interesting information, looking at the data and perspective of the data. Now this is a very simple understanding of any of the AI system, machine learning, that usually we work on data to bring out some decision. A little bit complex process. And if you look at this diagram, there is a source of data where we have number of data in any form for any type of data. It can be a Amazon customer data, it can be an Amazon product data, it can be an Amazon ratings data, it can be a SpO2 data of a patient in a hospital, of number of hospitals in the world, it may be COVID infection data, it can be data of LiDAR sensors, it can be data of flight control kind of a thing, angle of the flight or the flight speed, whatever you call. So when we see the data, we need to have an insight on the data. That is very important. What is exactly is insight? Insight means if I give you an Excel sheet which contains 40,000 columns and say, sorry, 10,000 columns and 10,000 rows, for example. So just by looking at the data, we do not understand anything. Or simply if I say I write four numbers, 35, 40, 42 and 32. These resembles only numbers. It does not have any information. But if I put a label on that data, that temperature, then it has some meaning. It is now meaningful data. So 32 is a temperature, 42 is a temperature, 35 is a temperature, 38 is a temperature. Now these numbers are not numbers of any centimeter heights, or maybe it is not the number of any accelerometer value. So now it is the data of the temperature. But if I provide more information to that data, I put another column close to that, and if I write March, April, May and June, now it is more meaningful that it gives me information of temperature of the month. It means that it is an environmental temperature. It is not the temperature of a machine. It is not the temperature of a motor. It is not a temperature of anything else. It is not the temperature of human body. It is the temperature of our usual season. That okay, March, April, May, June, these are the four data, and the temperature is also a label. So now it is meaningful data. Now that is an insight. Insight means a kind of a thing that we are knowing about that particular data. We have some sort of information. Even we get some information that okay, the range of the data is from 32 to 42. If we see the distribution of the data, we may get some sort of bell-shaped curve. It means that okay, that is a kind of a distribution of the data. Maybe it is not completely kind of a marginally distributed on some side, left side or right side. So this is all about insight into the data. Once we know the data, we should have an insight into the data. But insight is not enough. We need to work with the features of the data only, because that is what we use in case of machine learning. To train the model, we do not use simply the data, we use actually the features of the data. So that is very important thing. And now comes the role of an expert who is having the domain knowledge about that particular features of the data. As a professor of electronics and communication engineer, if I'm working on sensor data, then I might have the domain knowledge of the sensor data, because I know the outcome of the sensor in terms of whether it is analog value, whether it is digital value, what can be the error rate into that, what can be the fluctuation in the data, what breathing time I'm setting up for the sensor to transmit the data, whether I'm sending it every interval of 1 second, or maybe I'm taking the data at 30 seconds. It all depends on the domain knowledge of the data, or the features I should say. Now take an example that I'm planning to monitor number of data from a medical system, healthcare diagnostic system, which is actually continuously monitoring the patient data in an ICU. Like a patient is there in an ICU and there are lots of biomedical equipments kept over there that measures the blood sugar level continuously, maybe the blood pressure, SpO2 level, heart rate, and number of heart rate variability and etc. So all these things are being measured. So as a domain expertise, I don't have, if I don't know about those things, if I do not understand what can be the range of the blood pressure, then for me they are merely some data, but I don't have any knowledge about those features, that whether I need to look at the boundary condition of this data, what can be the outlier data into that, what can be a kind of an abruptive or impulsive data into that, whether it is possible or not. So these are all the things which is very important when we talk about the features of the data. So domain knowledge is very important. It is all about a kind of an expertise which we use while working with any of the machine learning application. And it is today very interesting that there is an approach of multidisciplinary research or multidisciplinary application development. In most of the application which are successful, most of the research which has been successful are multidisciplinary. If you are working into our own domain, and we cannot bring out much innovative products or the solutions for the system, because our life is basically multidisciplinary. In all domain we have some sort of connection, whether it is physics, whether it is chemistry, whether it is medical, whether it is engineering. So we are all, our whole system or the ecosystem of our society is basically multidisciplinary. And that is why when we are talking about any multidisciplinary problem, but the doctors may not have the expertise of machine learning, the chemist may not have the expertise about machine learning, but machine learning engineer may not have details about like what the genetic structure is all about and how to solve the problem out of that. If I data of all the genetics recordings, maybe the collected from the samples, but if you don't know what can be the structure of that gene or something like that, we never know what outcome we can bring out of this. So we need to understand the insight of the data, we need to understand the domain knowledge of those particular features of the data, and finally we use that which features are important to understand the concept. Just to understand that, say for example, I'm making a system which can be for biomedical healthcare system, and I want to predict something, that whether the person will have an heart attack or not. That is what I'm trying to measure. So over 25 years of time, I might have recorded the data of the patients having heart attack at some point of time in their life, and I have a huge past history of the data for them. Now, if I'm putting that particular system onto some patient in the ICU, whether I would be able to understand those things or not, whether my system will be able to predict the heart attack or not. So at that time, if I'm reading the sensor data from the human body, maybe about heart rate or maybe the temperature of the body or maybe the surface skin resistance of the body, all this data I'm being monitored. Now at that time, if I don't use my domain knowledge of electronics, that in such sort of critical healthcare application, I need to set the data rate to be sent at every half second, I should say, or maybe at 500 milliseconds. But if in case of temperature monitoring in India specifically, if you want to measure the daytime temperature, there is no need to send the data at every second, but because it is not going to change. Maybe after 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes, the temperature doesn't change much because it is not that sort of critical application. And even we know, we have the full knowledge about our weather conditions and all these things, that in temperature of in March and May and April, over a daytime it ranges from say 28 degree to 38 degree or 40 degree, something like that. So there is no need to send the data at very frequent interval. So that is basically the breathing rate of the sensor. And this is something about when we apply to some other field of the data or the knowledge of other systems in terms of domain knowledge, whether it is healthcare, whether it is military application, whether it is pharmaceutical application, it again applies that we need to see that what sort of breathing rate we are setting for collecting the data. So now we have collected, say for example, features of the data, and we are providing these features to train the model with the known data, the labeled data, which we call it as supervised learning, and we have created a model. So most of the computer scientist job is to develop a model, and the model is able to predict something with some sort of accuracy. Then the job is finished. But this is only the raw material for any business problem. if I want to set up a business, I should have my business objectives as well as my business constraints also. That I need to take decision when this sort of prediction appears. I need to take the decision when, so decision making is very, very important, that when you are having some sort of prediction about the prediction from the machine learning system, that okay, this is going to be the, say for example, Reliance Jio may be targeting their revenue generation in 2023 up to this much, but the prediction model says that in December 2022, there is a huge rise. So I need to take any change in my decision making system or not. Whether I want to increase the sales marketing or whether I should decrease some sort of advertising for particular products. That is what the decision making is all about. So when we are talking about a complete machine learning system, it is all about taking data and taking it up to decision. So we are actually extracting useful information from the data for taking better decision by prediction, and from the prediction we are putting our decision parameters, that whether I want to do this or that or another different 3 to 4 conditions or n number of conditions. Okay, you have taken the decision, that is also true. Now, when you took this decision, you have to provide the feedback also to your system. So your data can be better again. It can be in improved data. Say for example, I reached to the college at 10:30. That was my prediction that the college is open at 10:30 because usually it opens at 10:15, for example. But when I reached here at the college, the door was not open, it was locked. So I took my decision that okay, next day maybe I'll come at 10:40 or 10:35. So that is a kind of a feedback which I'm giving, that if I am late, maybe late for 5 minutes or if early for 5 minutes, what are the different changes in my system? So later on, it will help me to improve my prediction and later on my decisions. Now I will explain this with some sort of example to understand it better. So usually there are different paradigms in the machine learning systems for driving better decisions from the data. So here is an example of a classification problem or a classification paradigm where we are talking about some sort of agricultural data. So here a kind of a drone is flying across the farms, on top of farms, and it is collecting number of data. So it may be collecting some sort of data using remote sensing, some sort of text classification is one of the problem where we use for classification. We do sentiment analysis in using classification. We do medical diagnosis using classification. We use CRM systems for classification. But in this example, we are focusing on agriculture problem. That the drone is collecting number of data, maybe using lidar sensor, camera images, or maybe sensing the temperature, the humidity level, the rain level, or number of different uh, classification problems which we want to solve. So we have that sort of insight. Until and unless we do not have insight about the data, that whenever I'm collecting the data from lidar sensor which is connected in the drone itself, what it is going to give me as an output, that is what is my insight. That lidar gives me a kind of a if the camera is there is a depth sensing camera, then it will definitely provide me RGB plus D, so red green blue pixel value as well as the depth of the object, how far it is. So it is a kind of a time of flight camera which gives me a lidar data output with a camera output. So this is all about the insight. But what my agricultural domain knowledge says me, that whether I have an information about a particular crop, or maybe we are not like farmers, those who are having lots of information about their domain, maybe related to farming, they know better than us. So we may contact them, we may ask them that okay, I have collected lots of data of your farm. Now I want to see that what is the particular image says, what exactly, if the leaves are yellow or maybe it is green or maybe there are some black spots on them, maybe some of the portion of the crop is not fully waterized, what can be the problem, what can be the growth level, at what time it will grow much. So this is something about the domain expertise or the domain knowledge of particular problem. And these are the features what we provide for the classification. Say our model says that it is a classification kind of a binary classification problem, whether it is normal versus stressed in a way kind of a crop. So at that time, this gives you a prediction that whether your crop is normal or whether your crop is not normal. Now, what our job as a machine learning expert is that we want to again take the decision based on the prediction. So now looking at the conditions of the crop or maybe the classification of the crop from the model. So I have actually replaced the model with a classification word in the previous example sheet. Let me take you back to the slide. So here it was model. Now it is kept as a classification, but the graph, the chart remains same. Features, here it is prediction, that is basically normal or an abnormal one. Conclusion is something, sorry, decision is all about like whether we want to provide water, we want to provide pesticides or fertilizer. These are some of the decisions which we are going to take by looking at the prediction outcome output. Now the business problems or the business constraint says that I want to maximize my yield or minimize my cost of farming. That is what the business problem is all about. Making simply a system or collecting the data, training them and creating them a model is not a foolproof development of any machine learning system until and unless we incorporate number of aspects of business problem into the ML, then and then it is going to work. Otherwise, usually it becomes a student project where practically it is impossible to implement, or there are lots of flows into the project which is not at all possible to use them in a real world. So here the business problem is all about maximizing the yield or minimizing the cost of the farming. So similarly, we will take the decision, we will provide more water, crop yield and total cost will be calculated. So that would be a kind of a feedback what we are providing to the system. Again, whenever the drone will collect data in the next, maybe after 1 month or maybe 15 days, there would be a change. So the insight of the data we will again understand. The features are improved now, and basically the classification model will improve. And finally, we'll be able to see that whether the crop is better or not. So what we are targeting based on the conclusions, what decisions we are taking, that is also very important. Now take another example. Previously it was a classification paradigm. We were simply talking about the whether the crop is fine or normal or abnormal or a stressed in a way crop. But now there is a different example. It is basically about a recommendation paradigm. Similar graph, similar chart, similar process, similar method. Insight, data, feedback, features, model, then prediction, then decision, everything remains same. But now there is a change. Let us take an example that the data with the basket which is shown here, these data are like belongs to Amazon. Amazon has a data of various customers about their purchase pattern, at what time the customer is purchasing, usually on what weekdays the customer is purchasing, whether the customer is purchasing one time in a year, every month in a year, or maybe something different than that. Maybe some of the things like which product do you like? Maybe I'm buying only electronics item from Amazon, then maybe Amazon has information about my data that okay, this customer is always buying electronics related product. Somebody is only interested in beauty products, then maybe they are buying those products. So this is a kind of a complete complex data where even the feedback is given, whether the customer is purchasing when there is only a sale or a discount kind of a thing, whether the customer only spends time on the Amazon website but never purchases anything, whether the customer is having a pattern of returning products more and more time. Maybe I might have purchased 10 products, but I might have returned it 8 times. So that is also a kind of a pattern of a customer, that this customer is not satisfied all the time. Hardly he is satisfied for the of the products. Most of the time he returns back the products. So these are all information about maybe a e-commerce website from a customer perspective. So there is an insight about the data, what sort of data we have, whether it is customer feedback, whether it is a discount rate, whether it is a real purchase or not. Many a times it happens that as a customer, we select number of products, we send them to cart, but we never buy them. There are such sort of customers also who usually send all the products. Their cart is 43,000 rupees, 50,000 rupees, but they are hardly purchasing anything. They simply satisfied after sending the product to the cart and they never buy it. So Amazon collects all these data. Even they have the information about the choice of the color we like, most of the which maximum purchase, which color we have purchased for the maximum time. All this information they are having. Now Amazon is asking that machine learning engineers to design a product based on the recommendation that okay, these are the data of the user with us. Now we want to provide some sort of more information to the customer, so that what is our business constraint or business problem is that we want to maximize cross sell, we want to maximize upsell, we want to increase the lifetime value of the customer, we want to minimize the coupon fatigue, etc. So what exactly all these happen? Say for example, Amazon knows that I am buying a mobile phone. Okay, so now there is another option of that Amazon will suggest me that do you want to buy the mobile phone cover with that or not? Because now Amazon has lots of data, and the business problem is to increase the cross sell. If I'm buying a shirt, it will suggest me buy a pant also. So that is again a cross sell. Now another example is that if I'm buying a 30,000 of price rupees of mobile phone, Amazon may suggest me a little bit higher, better model of some another company. That is something about maximizing product, maximizing the upsell of the particular business, increasing the lifetime value, whether you are able to turn the customer, the first customer, into a valuable customer or a legitimate customer who is coming back again and again to purchase, how to make the experience of the customer better and better. Okay, now the customer has purchased something and Amazon has given you some coupon also. That okay, for this particular recharge mobile phone, you have got 20 rupees of the coupon for your next recharge. That is again a kind of another methodology which they are using for increasing the customer buying rate, or maybe the frequency of the customer who can come again and again onto their platform. Similar scenario of recommendation paradigm applies to products in Amazon, movies in Netflix, people on LinkedIn, news feeds of Facebook, YouTube videos, all are working on the same principle. Now let us look at the domain expertise in this particular example. Whether the customer is seasonal versus causal, or maybe the what is the purchase behavior of the customer. These are what the features what we have collected from the Amazon data, or maybe any e-commerce website. In using this data, we want to recommend something. As I told you that if the customer is a seasonal one, do you want to make a customer into a different category that becomes a regular customer who purchases all the time? Sometimes it happens that once we buy the product from a particular shop, we never go back there. But sometimes if we see that the product was good, there are some sort of coupons, or maybe the benefits or the discount or the quality of the product was good, we go again and again and we become the regular customer. So similarly, this recommendation system basically will suggest us the probability of conversion, that whether this seasonal customer is being converted into a causal customer or a regular customer or not. That is what the recommendation paradigm is all about. That we want to recommend a particular customer that he is going to be converted into a regular customer. That is what these companies are doing these days. Now, okay, the customer probability what we have received from the probability output model, which has been trained for the recommendation system. Now, the decision what we want to take is that whether we want to suggest any product, whether we want to send any message to the customer using different channels, whether the customer is not using or responding to a SMS, maybe we can send them using Telegram, whether we send them using WhatsApp, whether we send an email. If the email is, whether the customer has really clicked on the offer which has been sent to him or not. At what if we send to the customer, usually the customer immediately opens the email, or these are some of the things which we need to focus. Usually Amazon email comes in the daytime or maybe in the evening time. That is again a kind of a feature what they have understood from a particular customer. If I am getting an email in the evening, you may not be getting in the email in the evening. That may be a different time based on the data which they have collected for you. Okay, now there is a feedback that okay, we have sent a message to the customer, we have sent a coupon to the customer, we have sent a particular time of the email, but how many things have been actually utilized? How many coupons have been converted into a real purchase or real business? Maybe we are getting lots of coupons from Google Pay whenever we pay. Whenever we are paying on Amazon, or whenever we are maybe recharging using Paytm, we are getting some coupons. But all the time we are not utilizing them because we don't want to buy anything. But most of the time, if the company knows that okay, this coupon has been converted, now it means that you are attracted towards this particular offer of coupon, and I need to provide you more and more. So that is a kind of a feedback which again goes to the data that okay, in front of your name column, product feedback, rating, quality, etc., there is another column of feedback about coupons. Okay, this customer has actually utilized that coupon. Whether he purchased again, whether the customer churns out or block couponing, customer didn't like whenever you are customer might block those emails, might send them to a junk mail or spam folder. These are all the things which they try to monitor. And this is what all about when we are talking about the data to decision, we need to understand this sort of scenario. Why I'm talking about all these things? Usually people play with the data only. They write a code, they make a model, and they forget about all this. They believe that, okay, things have done, we have done our task, but that is not the real task. It is all about driving better decisions from this sort of cross verification of the system and the modeling of the data. Another paradigm is basically outlier detection paradigm. Here is a very interesting example of the similar chart which I am using again: data, insight, features, model, prediction, decision, feedback. So this is the same diagram, but now the use case is different, the paradigm is different. It is basically about outlier detection. Take an example of a credit card which a customer is using. Customer is swiping credit card all the time for almost all the purchase. It means that the company or the bank has the information or the data about a customer, that this customer is a regular user of the credit card. He's almost every purchase is done by the credit card. But maybe there is another customer who hardly uses for one time in a year. That is the pattern of using. Another customer may be utilizing it for some sort of Diwali festival, or maybe there is a Amazon sale or something like that. So there is again another pattern for that. Now the company's or the bank's job is to identify whether there is any fraud or not. When the credit card is being swiped, usually company checks whether it is a kind of a fraudulent activity or not. So they want to find out some sort of outlier activities happening. Outlier detection is all about identifying abnormal usage of the credit card in this particular example. So there is a kind of a domain expertise all about like seasonal usage, multiple users, maybe a single credit card is being used by a number of family members. I'm also using, my wife is also using, my son and daughters are also using. So it means that there are multiple users. So that is why the behavior of the purchase is also different. Maybe sometimes I'm buying a washing machine and sometimes I'm buying a t-shirt also. So it means that there are different users in your family who are using this card. So the company or the banks collects all this information and try to improve the model for the prediction of outlier detection. Maybe in a daytime, say for example, you have purchased a gold. The company knows that you have never purchased a gold of 50,000 rupees from your credit card. So company will immediately approve or disapprove or call to the customer or block the card or block the account. These are the decision it will take. Maybe your model is good. It has got some decision for you that okay, there is a fraudulent activity. Fraud is detected from your credit card and unauthorized usage has been found. So company will immediately call. But sometimes it happens that if the model is not working well, if its prediction is not well, even sometimes they need to take care of the customer that, okay, this is a very valuable customer, maybe a kind of a prestigious customer, and I should not disturb the customer. But when the statement comes at the end of the month, it shows that and it identifies from the customer report that there was one fraudulent activity which has been found, but we had not informed the customer. So these are some of the things, whether you want to set the problem for business solution to minimize the fraud or whether you want to maximize the convenience of the customer. Usually the model understands everything about the user usage behavior of the customer or the credit card user, that in night at 2 a.m. at night, usually people do not use credit card. But sometimes it may happen that you have flown out of country and you are into some different time zone at that time, you may be using your credit card. So these are number of features of the data, number of domain expertise, whether you want to understand the system, whether you want to put some bias for some specific customer or not. This is all very important. These days, like, we are getting notification for almost every purchase we do. If you use Google Pay for 10 rupees tea, or whether we use it for 15 rupees purchase or maybe 5,000 rupees. But sometimes if the system understands that, okay, these are very small transaction and I should not send a message to the customer, definitely they can create such sort of systems also, that for normal transaction there is no need to notify the customer about their purchase and how much money has been deducted. If it is more than 5,000 rupees, it is more than 1,000 rupees, then we need to see. So it is all about driving better decision by looking at all these aspects. And that is why some of the participant asked me about a question of the employability in the future. It is all about getting knowledge about the system in which they are working, in the domain area which they are working. If they have this sort of decision making kind of a plan, then definitely they can improve this. A normal computer engineering student can develop the system, create a model very well, but until and unless they do not have this sort of complete loop cycle information, they cannot be much successful. Or you can say that there are lots of opportunities when you have this sort of expertise of every area in which you are working. Okay. Now let me take you to another example. So first we took about the classification paradigm, then we took about the recommendation paradigm, then we saw about the outlier detection paradigm. Now there is a retrieval paradigm. This is again an interesting things which Google actually do for most of the searches what we do. So here there is an example of Hyderabad preschool search. It has given me lots of information about various results for Hyderabad preschools. You see the result, there is a summarized information because the customer is interested in Hyderabad preschool details. But the first job of the search result to satisfy the customer is to provide whatever preschools are available, looking at the popularity, looking at the reviews, looking at the number of visits to those particular sites. They have suggested you some sort of summarized information about Google on web page of Google about Hyderabad preschools. That is fine. Now the model also understands that the customer is looking for something related to schools, preschools in Hyderabad. So let us provide them some relevant search results also. This is all about some sort of graphs or maybe the maps detail. But on the second part, you see that there is a relevant search result. Now, very interesting part on this side, it is all about profitable ad. So if you look at these ads, leave the first ad, apply for franchisee, but look at the second ad. Routes to Wings Preschool, Manthan International School, Blue Block Preschool, Ellie Preschool franchisee. What does that mean? So they want to do the business also by providing you the search result. And if you click on that particular link, which is provided on the ads or the sponsored links, there is going to be a revenue generation for the Google as well as for the company who is providing this sort of information on the web page. So there is a business model running on the backside of this particular search algorithm. You are even suggested with that. But now the question is, why the first ad, apply for franchisee, is not related to the search what we have done so far about Hyderabad preschool? So that is again a different model, that okay, some company has paid that for one click I will pay you $1,000 to Google. Like apply for franchisee, the company called Roots to Wings in wings.in the result might have paid 1,000 rupees. That irrelevant of the search is, whenever you provide some sort of profitable ads, put my ad on the first rank. I'm going to pay you for that 1,000. So it is something related to profitable ads. Later on, all the ads are not maybe profitable or less profitable. Maybe there is $1 per click for the rest of the advertisement, which is here. So this is all about retrieval paradigm, that when you have lots of data into your server and you want to find out this number of information. So now you can imagine how complex algorithms they are running, how complex prediction models they are generating, and what are different outcomes. And based on the different clicks, again, the model has to retrain themselves to relearn and to improve. Maybe today I have captured this image, maybe after 1 month, it can be more and more better search result, or maybe a better ad options, a better related relevant search appears in the screen of the search result. So this is all about a continuous process in any scenario, in the specific case of retrieval paradigm. So in short, every machine learning paradigm is an optimization problem. We try to optimize the better and better how much best we can get. So basically in this previous case, search is equal to maximize click-through rate. So whenever you click on some ad, and ad is equal to maximize revenue. So control into, sorry, I mean to say click-through rate into cost per click. So that is what is all about optimization of the business of advertising, business of providing the results to the search users, etc. Now again, as a data scientist or maybe an AI engineer, there are lots of questions one need to ask before building any machine learning solution. Usually we take it in a theoretical way. We develop, understand the theory, develop a model, write a code and forget it. But we need to see lots of questions we need to ask for any sort of problem we try to solve. What decision does my business make? which offer to send to which customer. So first of all, decisions are very important. That okay, my business is of say selling cars, but what decision I want to do based on my customer. Say for example, I'm selling a car, then once the customer has purchased the car, what I can do better to increase business. Maybe you can call them back for free service and interact again with the customer. That is what your decision after selling the product. Or maybe I am having a hospital, but again I want to apply an ML solution to my hospital management system, so that whenever a customer is visited the hospital for one or another reason, maybe after 6 months or one year, I may send a message for some sort of free body checking, medical checkup camp or something like that. That is what the decision I want to take. So whenever we are collecting the data for number of business problems, we need to see that whether we want to take any decision based on business what we are doing. Now, second question is, on what basis do I make those decisions? That whether I want to send this information to the customer who has spent almost around 1 lakh rupees to my business, or maybe the person who has least invested or maybe least purchase item. I want to send those customers. So maybe past purchase behavior or those similar customers, similar something like that. Third question is, how do I quantify success of my decision? Okay, I am always taking some decision based on my data, model, prediction, features, my business problems. But what fraction of offers get converted? Whether I want to send these offers again and again or not. Just take an example that in our society, whenever the newspaper comes at our home in the morning, sometimes we find some pamphlets of some advertisements. So if they collect all these data and finally try to understand that whether this is a kind of a successful decision I am taking for advertising or not. And that is why some advertise says that whenever you come to our shop, bring this coupon, so you will get again some sort of discount. They want to understand that marketing strategy, whether they are working on the right direction or not. Next one is, what data should I collect to evaluate my decision? It is not necessary to collect all the data to take the decision or evaluate the decision. But the thing is something like whether the coupon is validated, redeemed, or whether it has been destroyed. Next is, what data should I collect to improve my decision? Previously, we were evaluating the decision. Now we are improving the decision. Whether I want to collect point of sale data, maybe social data, reviews on some Quora or maybe on the Facebook page, whether people have provided some sort of feedback, I should use those feedbacks to improve my decision for sending the coupons again or to evaluate the coupon. No, it is different. Then think of another plan. How do I improve my models from the data I collect? So more data I need to collect, more features I need to look for, better model, more customization of the model, or maybe I need to again rethink and restructure machine learning system. So data is all about thinking about the data, working on the data, and finally driving better decisions from the data. Help us in understanding the business problem solution very well. Now, if you look at the anatomy of a data, it is all about, I say between domain knowledge and the data. That is also a very important statement. Again, coming back to the same diagram, the circle data is basically very important for the whole system. So, thing is, what is the anatomy of data? How the data are organized, structured, types, features? Let us see them. So these are not data types of what we call them in a computer programming subject. In computer programming, we teach data types. This is not, I'm talking about those data types. I'm talking about different types of data. Just take an example that we have seen most of the data in a numeric format, a quantifiable number basically. So we have different types into that. At this point of time, it is related to what we teach in computer engineering, like integer data, maybe like age, floating point data, price, time, date, number of data types of quantifiable numbers. Second thing is, some data we can have types of maybe a statistics data, kind of a minimum, maximum, median, mean value. These are some of the statistics related data. Some data which are stored in an Excel sheet may not have any numbers, they are having only units. Say if I have written 10, 20, 30, 40, but on another column there is a unit, maybe a centigrade, Fahrenheit, kilogram, pound, meter, feet or second, minute, hours. Why this is very important to understand? Because if you are purchasing something from UK, it may be in pound, maybe one 1 pound of potatoes or 1 pound of sugar or 1 pound of salt, but when we purchase in India, it is in terms of kilograms. So this is also very important, designing that whether a customer is purchasing an Indian product from Indian market to UK, for example, the unit is to be considered, and that is a significant part of the pricing portion in the data itself, or maybe providing a price value to the customer. It can be converted into dollar amounts based on the country in which you are purchasing. Maybe the product is from different. Finally, we need to see that this is again a type of data in a data set. What is the distribution of the data? That is also very important. If we take a data of the students passed out from our university in last 10 years, we want to see a kind of a distribution of the data, whether how many students are having distinction, how many students were average, how many students were having fail mark sheet or something like that. So we just by looking at the data, until and unless we do not visualize them, we do not understand the distribution of the data. So that is also a kind of a data which is distributed and you can visualize them. You cannot visualize centigrade and Fahrenheit, but you cannot even visualize some sort of age data until and unless you use some sort of methods to distribute them, or maybe visualize using some sort of graphs and charts. Now, second is ordinal data, that is not quantifiable but ordered. In case of quantifiable data, what you can do is that you can set some criteria, large to smaller or different orders of the data, and they are also quantifiable, so you can measure them. But some data are, you cannot measure them, they are not quantifiable, but they are ordered. Definitely you can order them. Previously the numeric data can also be ordered in a different way, ascending, descending, or number of ways. But now look at this ordinal data on Amazon website. When you open some sort of clothing products, say for example t-shirt, so in t-shirt there are data about size of the t-shirt, whether it is small, medium, large, etc. But they are not quantifiable. They are not numbers. They are very important data. Whenever a customer is purchasing something, it is all about the data in terms of this value, size, small, medium, large. If you look at some sort of form which you are filling on the website of maybe a kind of admission process, the parents' income, maybe in terms of low, medium, high, wealthy, that sort of options, but they are not quantifiable numbers. But you can definitely set them in order. Relevance, whether you are providing a feedback to some sort of information about some products, it is maybe perfect, excellent, good, fair, bad, etc. That is ordinal data. Third one is symbolic data. They are neither quantifiable nor ordered. You cannot order them. Simply like product color. I want to buy a red t-shirt. So red, green, blue, different options are there, but you cannot quantify them. You can even not say that red is the first number, second is the blue. This may be my choice, but for data consideration, data point of view, it is not ordered. You cannot order them anytime. So these are all symbolic data. Maybe some product or maybe some person belonging to some country, maybe a maybe cricketers data of the world. Different countries are there, different states are there, different regions are there. Weather conditions also, every day we have lots of weather data. Maybe you want to download the weather data of New York for past 30 years, you get those data. But conditions you get in terms of rainy, cloudy, windy, etc. So you may come across all sort of data types while you are working on any machine learning project, but these are also very important. Usually we play with the numbers, we play with the data in a different way, but we never look for this sort of features while solving any machine learning problems. Now, next is very important aspects of the data, which is related to data organization. How the data are organized. It is not necessary that all the time the complete the data set is fully filled up with the data. Just take an example of multivariate data. Like rows are examples and of columns are features basically. There are some features of the product. There are some example ones. They are basically the users. Let us say an example of a multivariate data set of Amazon customer. How it is organized, how the data are organized in this sort of scenario. Look at the first Excel sheet on the screen. In the first Excel sheet, maybe there are only few data like feature 1, feature 3, feature 4 for customer example 1. Maybe there is one feature 2. So it means that there may be millions of products on Amazon website, but as a customer, I might have purchased only two. So other fields will be empty. for other products. Whatever product I buy, there would be one into that customer has purchased this product. So these are all about something about multivariate data where we have low dimensions and dense. So most of the things are stored over there. Sorry, I made a little mistake. I need to talk about another example to explain you very well that it is about like say kind of a census data of India where there are citizens of India and feature one is basically their Aadhaar card number, feature two may be their location in which they are belonging, feature three may be their income level. So this particular data set is a multivariate data set. The data is organized in a variety of features. It has low dimensions, but it is highly dense. It is fully filled up with lots of information. So that is why it is a low dimension and highly dense data. And it is basically known as a multivariate data. Second thing is basket data, which has some sort of information which I talked previously. That take an example of this item 1, item 2, item 3 in the second sheet on the screen. It shows about the product name. There may be 10 million products on Amazon website, but customer is example 1 who has purchased item 1 only and item 3 only. So rest of the product will be empty. There would not be any data entry in terms of 1. But for a customer 2, like in example 2, the customer has purchased product number 4 as well as 10. So there are two ones into that particular column. So these data is highly dimensional and sparse. The data is distributed among lots of customers and lots of products, but it is not much dense. I mean to say it is not much dense data. There are lots of dimension. In case of first chart or the first Excel sheet, there are only 5 features and there are 7 customers or the citizen, for example. But in this case, there are 10 million products for 7 users. There may be number of products, but most of them are empty. Only customers have purchased only few products. So this is again a kind of a data organized in a different way. But when you talk about a weighted sets of things, weighted sets means that okay, now the customer has purchased of one product, maybe item number 1 for 10 times, item number 3 for 5 times, customer 2 has purchased item number 4 for 13 times in this 100 million of data or the products on the Amazon website. So these are known as a bag kind of a data, bag of words, bag of visual words. If you look at an example of let us take this bag example or the third example in a different way, that I want to create a data set, or I'm using a data set which is basically counting the word bank, for example, in a newspaper news. So I have taken one news of Reserve Bank of India and I want to find out that how many times the bag word has repeated. So maybe it is 10 times. Maybe the government word is repeated for 5 times. Maybe in another news of cricket in example 2, in the item number 4 is basically a word called Virat Kohli. So these are all the information about visual words or bag of words. I call it as bag of words. So this is again an organized organization in a different way. It is highly dimensional and sparse. Previous was also highly dimensional and sparse, but was not dense. Again, this is also a not dense data set, but only in case of multivariate, it is highly dense. So we saw about different types of data types, whether it is numerical, ordinal, symbolic, multivariate, in a way of organization of the data, it is multivariate, basket, bag. We have different sort of data. Now another organized way of the data, organization of the data is basically a kind of a one dimensional sequence. If you look at the gene sequence, it is always one dimensional format. There are no numbers into that. So this may be a different types of organization of the data, which is a one dimension sequence. Maybe list of symbols in sort of some sort of chemistry problem. You have lots of symbols of the elements. That is also a kind of a one dimensional sequence of the data organized in a different. There is another one dimensional data which may be a kind of a temperature data or an IoT data, I should say, stock market data, which is again a one dimensional data but recorded over a period of time. So time series is basically a one dimensional series data. If you look at a 2D series of data is in case of image, because we have RGB, three different sort of things. Video data we have, that is in terms of 3D series. 4D is basically 3D videos. When you have, it is all about different sort of organizations of the data. So multivariate, basket, bag, 1D sequence, 1D series, 2D series, 3D series, 4D series are all different sort of organization. Next organization is all about graphs data. It is a very popular data these days, widely used and highly used in terms of Facebook, social networks, Twitter, LinkedIn. These are all graphs data. Chemical compounds, social networks, knowledge graphs, telecom data, traffic networks. Maybe I'm calling to say 100 users from my phone. The mobile phone company has a complete graph to whom I'm connected, usually whom I'm sending message, whom I'm frequently calling. So they are also trying to develop some sort of machine learning model based on that. Even LinkedIn always using this sort of information. Facebook is also suggesting you lots of people based on your usage and your connection. So these are all basically graphs, and the nodes and elements are connected with different nodes and elements using this sort of graphical structure. So these graphs are very popular these days for recommending you, for suggesting you, for taking decisions. Sometimes Facebook shows you that people you may know. There may be different logic behind that. There are different algorithms running behind that. Sometimes it happens that you have never known to that person, but sometimes it is possible that, okay, you are visiting a particular shop every day for maybe buying an ice cream or maybe purchasing something, and another customer is also visiting at the same place. Most of the time you might have crossed, so maybe Facebook also takes your GPS data and suggests you that, okay, you may know this person. So many a times you can come across those people that I have seen this guy maybe somewhere at, just reason was that you are on a common place of GPS data, and that is why Facebook is suggesting you some people. Many a times Facebook Messenger opens up your microphone without your permission because the terms and condition which has been accepted by you, that it can use at any time. So if you are talking about some person, maybe you are in a car and you are talking about some third person, and if at that time the microphone opens up from your Facebook Messenger, it again find that sort of common graph and suggest you. And when you go home and you see the Facebook, it suggests you a person whom you talked about in your car. That is also a kind of another logic behind that how it suggests using this graph network. Another organization of the data is basically the 3D shapes, a list of XYZ coordinate motion sensors. In the morning, we saw about an accelerometer data, which has different sort of XYZ acceleration as well as the gyro value of XYZ direction. And when you mix up all of them, like a protein structure also, when you look at the biology, protein structure is something like in 3D shapes of different scenario. So this is again another example of data organization. Just hold on for a 5 minutes. Now, if you look at the modalities of the data, there are two different types into that. One is the structured one, and one is unstructured. And many a times you will be able to understand that data modalities, data nuances, what we are talking about, the structure, the formats, their organizations are also mixed up all together. You can have a kind of a biological data of sequence, but that comes with different modalities of the data using unstructured kind of a thing. So let us take this as a modality types. One is structured, where we have fixed columns in table. Similarly, what we have seen in case of multivariate data of this one, they are all fixed in a table. Mix of numeric and symbolic features. As I talked about the price, when you are purchasing from UK, it is always in terms of pounds. The weight is in terms of pounds. Maybe the different country have different currency, so their data will be different. It may be a symbolic data. So structured data is always maybe mix of numeric and symbolic features. They're always fixed in columns in a table. But unstructured data, arbitrary size data points like sequence data, biological speech data. If I'm speaking, if you are speaking, of other people are speaking, there may be noise in the background, there may be noise of some other equipments and machinery, there may be an ambient noise, there may be a recording which has been done at different places. If I'm speaking in my room, maybe there is less noise, but if I'm speaking outside, maybe my original speech is same, but maybe lots of things are inbuilt, I should say mixed up with the noise, and that is why it may be different at different time. So they are all sequence data. Series data is all about stock market, etc. Text is all about pages, queries, tweets, ads, blogs, news. Whenever we find textual information, it is all about textual data. Image data is all about normal images from the camera, because high amount of images are being generated from the mobile phone camera. And you will be surprised to know that the highest selling of the product today is not the mobile phone, but the mobile phone camera, because for every camera there may be more than one camera. For every mobile phone there may be more than one camera sold out. That is why the revenue or the profit making is more into the camera business. So that is one source of images, normal regular images. Medical images are different, taken from a CT scan or maybe an X-ray or maybe a kind of sonography or different other mechanisms. Remote sensing using satellites, using drone images. So these are all again a different criteria. Again, the domain expertise of understanding the images would be different. Video is all about like regular videos or movies or security details, surveillance camera, video footages, all are different. Movie is a kind of a systematic flow of the story, and most of the things are fixed and constant. If you look at the characters in the movie, they are going to remain same till the movie finishes. But in case of a surveillance camera or a security camera, you never know who is coming and going and what sort of images or information will appear. Normal regular videos are different. Maybe if it's a football match video, you know about something football match and you have knowledge about that, okay, these players are playing over there, and then you can do video analysis using those data. But all these sequence, series, text, images and video data come under unstructured way. They are not in a table format or a structured format. So I've written a sentence: data is not always clean or simple in nature. Most of the time, data need to be clean, and even they are not even simple as what we understand. So this is again a data nuance one about textual data, and when your data has a noise into that, I'm talking about basically cleanliness of the data, and it is all about how the data is mixed up with noise, how the noise is involved. Let us see. Read the first line. Grammar, spelling mistakes, LOLs, mixed language. Most of the time we do generate lots of information. If you read a research paper, you will never find any grammatical mistake, any spelling mistake, any LOL, something like that, or any smiley, any mixed language, any English word into Hindi, something like that. You will never find all this. But we never know how the data has been generated. Once you are given a data set, it is your job to understand these data and try to find out the useful information to drive a better decision. Read the first block where it is written garlic use on pizza was tasty. S is missing. Then it is written Sicilian sauce was tasty. S is missing. Pizza dough is so yummy. Even Mariana chicken sandwich delicious. Eggplant parmesan was delicious. S is missing in most of the things. Now second block, you just need to go through that. It is written, this was most trusted place at which I have ever eaten. Most unsatisfied place I have ever eaten. Absolute worst service I have ever received. But we are able to understand, we are able to read. But the computer doesn't understand all these things when you have this sort of noise into the data. There are lots of mistakes. There are some words missing. So it is essential to know the noise profile of your data, how noise has been mixed up, how it is to be corrected, or maybe how you can take better decision even without correcting them. We understand, okay, this was the first line, garlic fuse on pizza was tasty. And S is missing, but I was able to read that, and everybody can read that perfectly. Even we correct the value, we correct the sentence, and we pronounce it correctly while reading it. So that is the job of a machine learning engineer or an NLP designer, natural language processing designer, to understand the noise profile. The machine learning algorithm we choose must be robust to noise in the data. It has to work on those noisy data also. Just take an example. NLP technique cannot be used on user generated content or Twitter data. Normal NLP will not work. You have to design a specific NLP system for that. NLP techniques can easily use on news articles because news article does not contain much error. And that is why I have shown a particular image of different types of data sources in the orange bar in the middle of the slide. Comments on YouTube and news articles are always heavily mixed up with the noise. Data. People do not write much because Twitter has a limitation of some 160 or 180 characters, and that is why it is not possible to write everything. So people shorten this word and maybe they omit some character out of that, but they write something. Then call center notes by the customer executives to write some sort of customer details and number of things. So maybe that is a little bit better than the Twitter data. Product reviews are again better because they are done by some sort of reviewers or maybe by customer. They want to write it perfect so that everybody can understand. If you go beyond that, blogs on Quora articles, Medium articles are better than all this. There are less noise into those textual data. Again, go to the news article. It would be far better than all these previous one. But journal papers and research papers are always perfect, I should say. So you can apply directly some sort of NLP on that. You need not have to worry about that. But if you try to apply your NLP on a WhatsApp group chat, there may be 200 group members and there is a huge amount of data of chats. If you apply the same model which is providing you a 90% of accuracy for your NLP system, goes fail into your chat box NLP because it cannot be applied. It works only when you have a less noisy data. So this is also very important data nuance. We need to understand that data noise is also very important. This is again an example of data noise. In this particular waveform, we have a signal and the data. We want to find out the signal out of this data. And there is an example of a Fourier series. If you have a value of A and B, you get different outputs. So the job of a data scientist or an engineer is to find out the signal out of noisy data. So here there is a kind of a problem which I tried to discuss about some sort of communication system, but it is not necessary to discuss right now. Even the sources of data, how the noise appears in the from the source of data, like not enough testing was done. This is a COVID data which shows number of things. In the red particular asterisk, it shows the empirical data, and the blue one is the model prediction. Model is predicting something like this, but the empirical data is a little bit different. Why this is? Because there is a noise in the data. So sometimes it happens that, like if you are testing only two patients and providing the result that two tested and two positive, it means that there is 100% kind of a spread of the corona or the COVID. So how much other parameters are affecting your data and adding noise to your profile of the information, we need to keep in mind that. So on this particular slide, I have written like testing was done, maybe change your result. Not testing in the right places, that is also a kind of a result which can generate false information. Testing kit noise, maybe the kit is faulty. Reporting error, sometimes it is negative, but somebody has written positive. Testing gaps, if you are not regularly being tested, then maybe a different sort of things. So there are lots of things we can talk about data, that data can be taken in a different way. Data can be having lots of different references also, and that is also very important. Now, another example is in terms of data nuance is that market basket data. We have seen that kind of a different data purchased from a different places. If you buy a complete logical item set in same basket, if I have gone to Chroma store, I might have purchased a camera or a laptop, but I have not purchased printer from there. I have purchased the printer from an HP showroom. or I might have purchased a mouse from Amazon website. So there is a different logical combination of the same sort of data. So maybe I already have those products, buy them from another retailer, buy them at a different time, got them as a gift. So it is all about a projection of latent customer intention when you are preparing a huge amount of data set and taking some decision. You need to keep in mind that okay, a person may be having Apple iPhone, but may be possible that he is already having a computer at his home. There is no need to sell him a kind of a computer after he is purchasing a mobile phone. So you need to look at the trajectory as well as the projection of the customer data, and finally take a decision based on that. So when you are talking about dealing about market basket data, that's very important that we understand the data nuance for this. This is also an example of maybe a kind of a mixture of projections of latent intentions of the customers. I hope that all of you are being listening this carefully, because I'm giving some examples, but you can relate examples to your domain of area. I'm giving you some general examples. Maybe sometimes you may feel that it is not relevant to the content of the session, but why I'm providing you this sort of graphical photographs and information that you understand it well. That okay, if I'm from physics, and if I'm collecting some data for my some physics related problem, I may need to think of this sort of aspects in data also. So here there is an example of completely electronic product and some sort of machine home tools for the this one. But market basket data says that it is a combination of these two, and it is a different projection of the data. So the insight from these slides is that you cannot find the needle unless you understand the nature of the haystack. That is very important. You need to understand the needle, you need to understand the haystack. Until and unless it would not be a needle for you. Okay, now there is a variability in the data. Variability is a very important aspect. Even everybody understands that, okay, these are all photographs of car, but there are lots of variations in these photographs. First variation is that the models are different. Second variation is that the pose of the car is different. The object is different, illumination of light is different, color is different, location is different, the angle of the camera is different, but again all of them are cars, all of them are dogs. So there are lots of variabilities in the images, but we need to see that that does not affect your decision. It should not happen that from the back side the person looks different and from the front side the person looks different and you take a different decision. You're maybe you are making a robotic system, and if it takes the decision based on some sort of bias, neglecting the variability in the images, that's not going to work. So it has to identify. And nowadays the systems are so powerful that I have seen classification and identification models in images that even if you show 10% of the backside of a particular car, even though it identifies that it is a Ford model or it is an Audi model or maybe it is a Volkswagen model. So they are so powerful in terms of even maybe sometimes human goes fail into identification of that sort of things by looking at just 10% of a particular car. The third data nuance is it's basically invariance in terms of data. Just look at the speech data. I am collecting lots of data about speech of a particular language, say Marathi. I'm collecting some information, but whenever I'm collecting the speech sample of the person speaking Marathi, there is again an invariance that maybe a person whose recording has been done maybe is of age 10 or age 40 or age 60. So age group variations are there. There are gender variations. There is an accent variation. Maybe a Gujarati who has moved to Maharashtra, but his accents are different. He always speaks Marathi like having a Gujarati accent. Emotions are different while speaking something. If you are happy and if you speak something, if you are disgusted and if you speak something, if you are sad and if you speak something, there is again variations in the data. As I told you, there are lots of background noise. There is a vocal tract health. Maybe a person having some sort of problem in the vocal tract, maybe having different generation of the speech signal. So this is related to speech invariances. In case of text, we have different paraphrasings. All of us, all the participants are given a task to write 10 lines on dog. Maybe the paraphrasing of the sentences would be different. Tense may be different. Active passive mode may be different. concept may be different, language may be different. So textual information to or data to have some sort of invariances, speech data to have invariances. If you look at the OCR data recorded from a kind of an optical character recognition system, the font may be different, the bold type maybe not bold, or italics or not italics, color, handwriting, something related to that. So there are lots of things we need to keep in mind while dealing with speech, text, or OCR data. We cannot work on a single sort of information. We need to keep all these things in mind. If I'm making a system that I want to find out the age of a person by their voice, so my AI system can identify and listen a particular recording of a person, and by recording listening that recording, it can tell you that the age of the person is 45 or age of the person is between 40 to 45. Maybe it is possible to find out because we have lots of invariances, and even an AI system is able to understand all this. So machine learning is basically the art of invariance learning. It means something which you want to find out. Another nuance of data is basically missing data. That is also very important. क्योंकि like sensor malfunction है, logging malfunction is there, human errors are there, optional fields are there, downtimes are there, data are not digitized. These are all something related to missing data. You might have connected a sensor, but maybe after half an hour it has stopped sending the data, and your Excel sheet is filled up with only timestamps. There is no temperature value being recorded into that, and when you come back and see, maybe a 30 row are empty. So you need to find out those things, that whether there is missing data or not. Statistical imputation in terms of most common values, average values, density based like most likely value given others, model based value like predicted from features, etc. So we need to keep all these things into mind. Another nuances is related to distribution of the data, whether the data is distributed in a different way, whether it is a logarithmic distribution or a normal feature based distribution. These are all some of the things. Now the last slide I'm talking about is the data having multimodal features. This is very important as an expert who is a machine learning expert or maybe a data scientist who is interested in dealing with a multiple or multidisciplinary problem. Okay. Take an example of an electronic healthcare record of a patient. Take an example of a healthcare record of a patient system where there is a physicians, clinicians, hospitals, radiography report, radiology report, vital sign report, PHR value, insurance data, laboratory data. So maybe when a patient goes to the hospital, many a times there are series of transactions of different types of ECG data is basically a time series data. So now you can see in this particular example, most of the data nuances we have seen so far are included in a single set of data set. So how complex the data is all about. There is a data ECG, electrocardiogram. It's a time series data, that is fine. X-ray images or MRI images are different. They are all basically image data. There are symptoms, maybe a kind of a basket data you can talk about. Medical report is textual data. Genomics data are sequence data. Pharmacy data are basket data because it's a combination of that. Blood report may be a kind of multivariate data. Maybe a Fitbit data, it is again a time series data. So when we are dealing with this sort of problems, we need to have a clear understanding about all the things what we have discussed so far about data nuances, that data cannot be treated with the same method or the algorithm or the solution or the problem solution mechanism. It has to be dealt with a different methodology until and unless you do not understand the nuances of this data. So finally, I would like to conclude with some of the things related to data is like more the data you have, more the truth you have. Data can be interpreted in multiple ways. To understand the problem, understand the data first. Until and unless you will not be able to solve the problem. Let us say, for example, we want to remove the poverty in India. That is what the problem is all about. But do we have data? Have we understood the data? What is the exact reason to solve this problem? So to understand the problem, understand the data first. Domain expertise is crucial in machine learning. And that is why the opportunities are for everyone. Data comes in variety of shape, size, form, and nuances. Understanding data is a complex task. Same rules and algorithms cannot be applied to the same data all the time. It is not like making a Punjabi सब्जी है आपने एक ग्रेवी बना दिया दूसरा नाम दूसरा कुछ डाला तो फिर से वही दूसरी प्लेट बन गई. It is not like that. You need to think of different solutions, different problem solutions for different problems. And data viewed from different perspectives gives different result. That is what the first image which I have shown, that everything is true but maybe the truth is different. So this is what is all about nuances in the data what I wanted to cover today. I have kept 3-4 slides of some of the data which has been generated by me, as I told you that while doing cycling from 2013, it is almost 9 years, 10 years. I have generated lots of data on Strava mobile app. So I have downloaded all of those data and tried to make a recommendation system. See, this day what happens that maybe you are wearing an Apple Watch. It's a very costly watch. It gives you lots of information about your physical data, fitness data, but it never recommends you anything. Maybe today you walk for 10 kilometers, or maybe you run for 5 kilometers, or if you ride a bicycle for 30 kilometers. Tomorrow, it is the best time to take a rest. But the watch will not tell you. It is smartwatch, but it will never let you know that, hey, you have already done excessive physical activity yesterday. So there is no need to do any physical activity today. Just take rest. So I wanted to make some sort of recommendation system. If I rode something today for 30 kilometers, next time how much kilometer I should ride, in which particular direction I should ride, what can be the best track for me to ride. So this is what something related to making a recommendation system for a kind of an athletic assistant. So some of the data which I have collected, I will show in terms of a web page. This is a screenshot of a web page where I can select the activities which I had done in past. So this is all about some of the past activities. It shows me the route details of GPS data plotted on a Google map. But later on, you can see this sort of a dashboard by which it becomes very easy to understand data. You have a huge amount of data of say 40 GB, 50 GB data, but until and unless you do not visualize them, you will not be able to understand data, their projection, their tendency, the distribution and all these things. So I made a dashboard which shows that maybe in this particular month I had rode this much, in this particular month there were very less rides, how much time I utilized for that, and the distance I traveled. There may be a data related to elapsed time versus distance and maximum speed, when the speed was maximum, in which particular route the speed was maximum. So these are some of the analysis which we can do for the data. So this is again a part of data analytics engineering where people simply play with the data, they visualize them, they story tell them, and finally it helps others to take better decisions. This is again another example of a new concept of data fusion. I should say sensor fusion data. This particular data is captured from Apple iPhone 13, which has a LiDAR sensor on the backside of the phone with the camera. When you take pictures with LiDAR as well as camera, it actually gives you an output in terms of depth data. So RGB plus data plus depth, distance of the object. And when I recorded this data for a very close heritage site in Ahmedabad, you can see it looks like this. So this is a complete different perspective of a kind of a video or an image. It is nothing like that. You cannot say it's a photograph. You cannot say it's a video because it is a different 3D projection kind of a video. It gives you details of the object or the particular architecture from all the angles with distance as well as the color information of the RG and B. So this is basically going to be used for the metaverse concept these days, that it becomes very easy to replicate the original structure. If I want to make a metaverse system and if I want to give you the experience that you are moving in Ahmedabad, you are moving in Ajanta Ellora caves, you can definitely capture this sort of data. You can utilize them, you can do some sort of prediction based on that, or maybe you can create something new out of this. Maybe you can collect, say, thousand of such heritage sites of India. Based on the data analysis, you can predict a model, and that modeling can give you a kind of a sense of those architecture. How, if you want to create a new architecture based on this sort of information available. So that is again one area where there are lots of scope of research in metaverse. These are some of the different systems. This was a kind of a gesture communication device using accelerometer and Arduino. And this is interesting one. This is IoT based prescription system. When we go to a doctor, usually the clinical diagnosis says that there is a one complete chapter. If those who are a medical student, they have a clinical diagnosis book, one complete chapter on tongue diagnosis. So when you go to the doctor, usually doctor asks to show the tongue, and that is why he is able to predict something based on that. He's not taking any decision based on that, but he is able to understand some sort of problems just by looking at the tongue. So we lots of different tongues, and they took their pictures, went to the doctors, and we collected lots of information about what can be the probable reason of this sort of texture, color, and the shape and size of the tongue. So we created an AI system that it was a Raspberry Pi kind of a system, and when you keep a Raspberry Pi camera in front of your tongue, it captures images, and based on the machine learning model, based on the previous data, it actually creates a prescription of some sort of test suggested for you, that you need to go for this test because the AI system has predicted something like that. And the complete PDF file was set on the Telegram itself. So if you put such sort of kiosk in areas, medical facilities are very far, people can go to those kiosks and they can directly get the report or prediction. Maybe you have a kind of a anemic condition, or maybe vitamin deficiency, or maybe some stomach problem or something like that. So this is again a kind of a based on the data, how domain expertise can be used for understanding the data. And the last one is related to the same thing I discussed about the potato and their identification. This is a complete poster of how we did that project. So thank you so much for listening me. I think I finished earlier.
Yes, sir. Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
sir.
sir. Thank you so much. Friends, if you have any question or any sort of discussion, feel free to ask.
Sir,
Any
good evening, sir.
question or any feedback? Yes,
Good
sir.
evening,
we, we
sir.
we talk a lot about data, so I think if you have any new feature or nuances, you can talk about the data. I would be happy to listen from you. Can you suggest me anything, or which you know that you have not covered this sort of feature or the type or nuances in the data? Do you know, like today, people are working on some sort of what they call speaker derelation system, that whenever we are talking on this sort of web meetings, see, there are, I think, 32 users right now. And when a particular user is speaking, his name is appearing, right? So that is okay, that based on the WebEx system or maybe a Zoom meeting, there is a feature that whenever a person speaks, his name appears. But I want to create a data set that whenever I want to record the data, it has to go to that particular person's name, and finally it has to create a complete transcript based on that. So this is again a very interesting research area where people are working based on the data collected. Even recently I met one person who is a global manager of European cloud system. He's from Microsoft, and he actually developed a very good system for Microsoft Teams. That, say, for example, there are 32 participants. If all of these 32 participants have traveled to Nagpur, how many energy have been wasted in terms of carbon footprint, in terms of traveling, in terms of petrol. So they had created a button on the Microsoft Team meetings. Based on the locations and the IP address, it will calculate the total energy saved because of this particular program or maybe the meeting. So I will request Preeti madam to do something like that, that you can suggest that we have saved this much of money and
Yes.
this much of energy because of this sort of online sessions.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes.
definitely we miss the feel factor in case of online.
Yes, sir. That's true. Yes. Dr. Anthony, sir, you want to ask something?
Ma'am, I have a small question.
Yes.
Sir, good evening, sir. It was very informative. And this maybe this maybe seems to be a little normal question. So when we use the face identification, age identification by face app, every time I show my face, it shows different ages. For example, if I first time I face it, it shows 33. Second time I face it, shows 25. And what sort of is it just because of low data structures or
So you are talking about the project or the system which you have developed, or you are already using any application which has been
no?
downloaded?
I just used to have the mobile app. No?
Okay, so you are already a third party application which you are using, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so in case of most of the Chinese phone, I have observed that they are having inbuilt application in the camera itself that can identify the gender and the age of a person, but they are not much perfect and accurate because they do not have use other continent data. Even it depends, and they might have written into their terms and condition or maybe somewhere in the feature guideline of the product that while collecting the data, they might have kept the camera maybe 3 feet away. But if you are not following that particular rule, definitely it's not going to work. That is also one criteria. Another thing is if the data is not clean perfectly. In 2018, I was guiding one of my PG student a project for gender detection using Raspberry Pi. So whatever you show to a Raspberry Pi camera, it will identify the gender of the person. But when the student actually started downloading data from Google Images directly, because he was not interested in taking the photographs of male and female passport size photo, but he downloaded most of the passport size photographs from the internet. And based on that, I found that the data was not completely clean. And because of the popularity of some Indian politicians, they were appearing in whether it is male or female, they were appearing in both of the images. He was never bothered about removing them. And that was actually changing the complete result of the model. So maybe these sort of things are happening in some of the cases where we are not following the distance, maybe the background is different, or maybe the model is not accurate. So maybe the technique which they have used is good, but I should say the model is not accurate. And it should, even we cannot predict that it can be a universal kind of a thing. It may be working good for the Chinese people. It may not be working good for the Indian people. One of my students had developed a kind of a drowsiness detection system for drivers. While drivers are driving the car or truck at the night time, if they are feeling sleepy, they feel drowsiness. So I asked him a question that what happens if a Chinese driver is driving? He always looks like a drowsiness kind of a condition because it happens to Indians only when their eyes are having very small gap between their pupils. But the thing is, it may not work. So universally, it has to work. So definitely, one way, I should say that there can never be a universal system. It can be a geographical or geography based or a particular cluster based. And if it is for some specific problem, it has to be made for them only. So it's like that.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, would you please let me know? Suppose I want to data collection for astrophysics. Which type of system I can use? Because this is really new for me.
For
Whatever you
astrophysics,
have
like
explained just now,
you will
I want
definitely
to.
find some images or maybe some data related to microscopic details or the observatory. What type of data do
Sir,
they
about
collect?
the observatory.
Observatory data. Okay.
Yeah.
So you need to see that how you can do. These observatory data are basically in the form of images or they are in the form of some numbers.
So in numbers form.
Number forms. Okay, so
Yeah.
you know the data and basically the features because that is your domain expertise in terms of astrophysics. So if you understand the data very well, you can finally think of the problem that okay, I want to find out something like this, or maybe I want to predict something. I want to do simply data analysis. It is not necessary all the time that we are trying to build something to predict. Sometimes it is also necessary that we want to do only the data analysis. So initially you can start with the data analysis, and once you do the data analysis, you can definitely move to some sort of machine learning system. And for data analysis, I should suggest first of all you try to learn, or if you are already knowing Python, try to use the data science library like NumPy, Pandas, and for visualization you can go for matplotlib library. You can see the distribution of the data and understand of a picture, and then you will be able to move forward for designing some very interesting or innovative system into astrophysics area.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, hope there is no question.
Yes, sir. So thank you so much, sir, once again for both the sessions. कल हम मिलते ही है सर आगे के टॉपिक्स के लिए.
Okay, tomorrow 11.
11 o'clock, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I had to actually quick shot up for 15 minutes because somebody is waiting since long outside my room and
Okay,
there is
okay,
a
sir. No issues, no issues, sir. No issues. Thank you
okay.
so much, sir. Once again, thank you so much from all the participants as well. Thank you.
Bye bye. Have a nice
Bye.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
of
you,
you.
sir.
Yeah. This is for our today's task and आज आप लोगों को रिपोर्ट सबमिशन करना है. Are you all with me? Am I audible clearly?
Yeah,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes. So today there is only report submission, no quiz from the sessions. Report submission में आपको जो भी सर ने आपको भी दो somebody's mic is on, just a minute. Yes. दो सेशन में सर ने जो भी हमें पढ़ाया है उसके बारे में ब्रीफ एब्स्ट्रैक्ट आप लोगों को लिखना है. टॉपिक का नाम, स्पीकर का नाम और उन्होंने जो भी पढ़ाया है एक पैराग्राफ या तो एक पेज का एब्स्ट्रैक्ट हैंड रिटन और टाइप्ड फॉर्मेट में आपको सबमिट करना है. कहाँ पे सबमिट करेंगे? जो आपकी जिनोमियो की साइट मैंने दी है जहाँ पे आपने कल का टास्क कंप्लीट किया था वहीं पे आज के डेट में आपको रिपोर्ट सबमिशन का गूगल फॉर्म दिखेगा. वो रिपोर्ट सबमिशन के फॉर्म में आपको वो जो आप रिपोर्ट बनाएंगे वो सबमिट करता है आइदर इन द वर्ड फॉर्मेट और पीडीएफ और हैंड रिटन है तो फोटो निकाल के भी आप लोग भेज सकते हैं. ठीक है?
Ma'am,
एनी
it
डाउट?
should be combined of two sessions, no?
यस यस.
Yeah.
कंबाइन करिए या तो फिर एक एक अलग पैराग्राफ लिखिए.
Okay.
दैट विल बी मोर कन्वीनियंट. मुझे चेक करने के लिए इजी जाएगा. वो दो अलग अलग पैराग्राफ करके टॉपिक अलग अलग लिखिए और उसके नीचे एब्स्ट्रैक्ट लिखिए इंडिविजुअल.
Okay. Thank you.
Madam, up to what time we have to submit this report?
सर टिल नाइट आप आराम से करिए, कोई घाई नहीं है अपने पास. अभी मैंने ना सेशंस का रिकॉर्डिंग, पहले सेशन का रिकॉर्डिंग मैंने अपलोड किया है. दूसरे सेशन का अभी अपनी ये मीटिंग खत्म होने के बाद रिकॉर्डिंग हो जाएगा. दैट आई विल अपलोड इट ऑन यूट्यूब एंड सेंड इट इन अवर जिनोमियो साइट. तो आप कुछ पार्ट अगर मिस हो गया होगा तो आप एक बार रिकॉर्डिंग भी देख लीजिए और उसके बाद भी रिपोर्ट सबमिट किया, रात तक किया तो भी चलेगा. देर इज नो डेडलाइन एज सच, बट कल के पहले आपका होना चाहिए क्योंकि कल वो डेट हाइड हो जाएगी.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
ठीक है. और यस दीपक सर, हाँ दिलीप सर आहेत का? दिलीप सर. हाँ सर, मी तुमच्यासाठी तो क्विज ओपन करून दिला आहे. कल आपके पहले क्विज में आपको 0 मार्क्स आए हैं तो कुछ टेक्निकल बातें कुछ गलत हुई होगी तो आप वो एक बार फिर से सॉल्व करिए, नहीं तो आपकी मार्कशीट गलत बनेगी.
I will do it now.
ठीक है जी.
हेलो मैम.
जी
हाँ, वो मार्क मतलब अटेंडेंस सुबह 10:30 से 11 बजे इनके बीच में ही मार्क करना है ना.
हाँ.
अभी ये 1:30 बजे वगैरह नहीं ना. वंस
नहीं नहीं, एक ही बार दिन में एक बार ही वहां पे मार्क करनी है हमारे रिकॉर्ड के लिए. हर सेशन में नहीं मार्क करेंगे.
ओके, थैंक यू.
हाँ. और सेमिनार के टॉपिक की लिस्ट मैंने डाली है अपने ग्रुप पे, लेकिन 20 ही पार्टिसिपेंट ने अभी तक भेजा है और 15 पार्टिसिपेंट्स के टॉपिक आना बाकी है. उसके सिवा मैं टाइम टेबल नहीं डिस्प्ले कर पाऊंगी. तो प्लीज़ ट्राई करिए. मैंने 17 तारीख आई थिंक लास्ट डेट दी है, तो 17 तारीख तक सबके टॉपिक्स आ जाने चाहिए. फाइन. किसी को कुछ पूछना है तो पूछिए. जी तिरुमूर्ति सर. Yes, yes. Sir, your voice is breaking.
Ma'am,
जी.
yeah, yes, ma'am. Are you audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, you are
Now,
audible.
ma'am? Ma'am, I have a problem.
Regarding?
I want to pay that registration fees. I was unable to pay the fees.
Okay, okay. Sir, you call me personally or you call to Kumbhare sir, Ajay Kumbhare, or you call me. I will explain you the procedure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Yeah.
Madam,
हाँ